Imagine knowing the exact date, time, and like the geographical coordinates of your death,
Oh, wow.
down to the final millisecond.
He has a heavy way to start.
I know, right? But just think about it. How would that change the way you drink your coffee this morning?
Dramatically.
Exactly. Like, how would it change the way you respond to a frustrating email or, the way you look at the people you love?
It would change everything.
Right. If you knew that the cliff edge was right there, visible, just approaching, the trivial anxieties of daily life would just completely evaporate, wouldn't they?
They absolutely would. I mean, it's a really jarring thought experiment because we spend our entire lives doing the exact opposite.
Oh, totally. We avoid it completely.
Yeah, we construct this elaborate illusion of permanence. We obsess over retirement plans. We optimize our morning routines.
Stockpile resources, all of that.
Exactly. And all of it is under this unspoken assumption that we have this endless runway of tomorrows. The final departure is like the ultimate blind spot for us. We treat it as an unpredictable ambush rather than a transition that we can actually actively prepare for.
That's so true. I mean, we'll spend an entire week just packing a suitcase and making all these checklists for a quick weekend getaway to the beach.
Right.
But when it comes to the final boundary, the ultimate next thing, we just throw our hands up and look away.
We really do.
But what if you actually had a cosmic map for that exact moment?
Now, that is the question.
What if ancient wisdom suggested that the eternal, imperishable reality of the universe, like the ultimate destiny of your consciousness, could be navigated?
Yeah, navigated deliberately.
Exactly. Today, we are looking at a text that does exactly that. It shows us how deep philosophical knowledge, daily devotion, and the ultimate goal of liberation are beautifully, perfectly connected right at the threshold of death.
It is a stunning framework.
It really is. And before we plunge into this, if you enjoy exploring these massive paradigm-shifting ideas with us, please take a second to subscribe to The Deep Dive, hit that like button, and share your own reflections in the comments section below. We love seeing how this material resonates with you.
What's so fascinating here is that the text we are unpacking doesn't just offer, a comforting platitude about the afterlife.
Right.
It actually offers a rigorous, almost scientific methodology for the mechanics of consciousness.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in Chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita.
A really profound chapter.
Yeah, this specific chapter is known as Akshara Brahma Yoga, which translates to the Discourse on the Immutable Brahman.
That's right.
And for those of you who have been following along with us, we are right in the thick of one of the most intense, high-stakes dialogues in human history.
Yeah, to really grasp the gravity of this chapter, we have to look at the immediate context.
Set the scene for us.
So we are on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The warrior Arjuna is facing a catastrophic civil war.
A literal war.
A literal war, a conflict that will pit him against his own family, his teachers, everyone he knows. And he has suffered a complete existential collapse.
Yeah, he's just broken.
His hands are trembling. He has dropped his bow. He is facing the very real, very imminent reality of mass death.
Right.
And in the midst of this overwhelming panic, he turns to his charioteer, who is the divine Krishna, and he just starts asking these rapid-fire, deeply metaphysical questions.
Which is wild because you'd think he'd be asking for military strategy.
Exactly. He's not asking for battle tactics at all. He's asking for a crash course on the fundamental nature of reality.
Which is such a deeply human response, right?
So completely.
Like when the world is falling apart, when the physical reality is threatening to crush you, you suddenly want to know what is actually real.
Yeah. What survives the collapse?
It's exactly what survives. And as we navigate Arjuna's questions today, we are going to be relying heavily on the foundational perspective of Adi Shankaracharya.
A giant in this field.
For sure. Just for a quick bit of context, Shankaracharya was this incredibly influential 8th century philosopher who consolidated the doctrine of Advaita Vedanta, or non-dualism.
Right.
His commentary on the Gita is legendary because of its sheer analytical rigor.
And his central thesis in unpacking this specific chapter is so profound.
What does he focus on?
He argues that the remembrance of God, or, the ultimate reality at the final critical moment of life, is precisely what dictates the soul's liberation.
Okay, so that last moment is key.
It is. But, and this is the crucial part we will spend a lot of time on today, he emphasizes that this isn't some last-minute loophole.
You can't just cram for it.
Right, the overarching theme is the absolute necessity of weaving devotion and meditation into the microscopic moments of our daily lives, like right now.
So the mission of this deep dive is to decode this cosmic map. We want to discover how this ancient, somewhat intimidating wisdom about death is actually a profoundly practical guide on how to live today.
It really is an instruction manual for living.
But before we can even get to the mechanics of the soul leaving the body, we have to understand the architecture of the universe that Arjuna is even asking about.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Arjuna realizes he can't understand the end of the journey if he doesn't understand the terrain first.
Makes sense.
He fires off 7 distinct questions in the opening verses.
7. Okay.
Yeah. He asks, what is Brahman? What is the individual plane, or Agyatma? What is action, or karma?
Okay.
What is the physical plane, Adiputta? What is the divine plane, Adhidaiva? And who is the entity residing in the sacrifice here in the body, Atiyachna?
Wow. That's 6.
Right. And finally, the ultimate question. How are you to be known at the time of death?
Okay, if you're listening to this on your morning commute or, while doing the dishes, I really want you to let those first 6 questions marinate for a second.
They are dense.
Yeah, they sound like deep philosophical jargon at first, like Brahman, Adhyatma, Atiputta, but they are actually an attempt to categorize every single layer of your current lived experience.
That's a great way to put it.
Arjuna is essentially asking, what is the electricity, what is the machine, and who am I inside it?
That's a highly intuitive way to frame it. And Krishna, who represents the ultimate omniscient intelligence here, answers these questions with absolute precision.
He doesn't hold back.
No, he doesn't give vague, mystical answers. He provides a real structural breakdown. So let's take them one by one.
Let's do it.
First, Arjuna asks, what is Brahman? And Krishna answers that Brahman is the immutable. The Sanskrit word used is Akshara, which literally translates to that which does not perish.
Okay.
It is the supreme reality.
Wait, let me stop you there for a second. When we say supreme reality or that which does not perish, we have to acknowledge how counterintuitive that is to our normal physical experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Because in our world, literally everything perishes. Physics tells us about entropy. Everything decays, mountains erode, stars burn out, cells die.
Yep.
So what exactly is this Brahman if it completely defies the laws of the physical universe we actually inhabit?
That's exactly why Shankaracharya's commentary is so vital here. He clarifies that Brahman is the unconditioned, absolute foundation upon which all of this changing reality plays out.
Okay, so it's the foundation.
Think of it as the screen upon which a movie is projected.
I like that.
On the screen, you might see a raging fire, a massive flood, an exploding planet, whatever.
Right.
But the screen itself is never burned, it never gets wet, and it never shatters. Brahman is the ultimate unchanging substratum of existence.
Wow.
It is the consciousness that allows the universe to be witnessed, but it is not entangled in the decay of the universe itself.
Okay, the movie screen analogy helps a lot. It's the silent, unaffected background of all existence. So that's Brahman.
Yes.
Then Arjuna asks his second question, what is Adhyatma?
Right.
And Krishna replies that Adhyatma is that very same supreme Brahman, but existing as the indwelling inner being within every individual body.
This is where the philosophy of non-dualism really takes shape.
How so?
Well, Krishna is saying there is no fundamental difference between the macrocosm and the microcosm.
Oh, I see.
The vast, infinite Brahman that sustains the entire cosmos is the exact same reality that is experiencing the world through your eyes right now.
That's intense to think about.
Adhyatma is simply the localized expression of the infinite. It's like a single drop of ocean water.
Okay, a drop of water.
Yeah, the drop has boundaries, it occupies a tiny space, but its fundamental essence, its chemical makeup, is 100% ocean.
I love that. So Brahman is the ocean, and Adhyatma is the drop of that ocean experiencing itself inside a human body.
Exactly.
Then we get to the third concept, which is karma, or action.
This one is tricky.
Yeah, I really want to pause here because in the West, we have completely hijacked the word karma.
We really have.
We use it like a cosmic scorecard. If I cut someone off in traffic, I'll get a flat tire tomorrow. That's karma.
Right. Instant retribution.
Or we use it as a synonym for cosmic revenge. But that's not what Krishna is talking about here at all, is it?
Not at all. It's a complete mistranslation of the concept in this specific philosophical context.
So what is it?
When Krishna defines karma in verse 3, he says it is the offerings and actions that bring about the origination and existence of things.
The origination of things.
Right. In the Vedic worldview, Karma is the creative force. It refers to the cosmic sacrifice, the continuous mechanical cycle of cause and effect that sustains the physical universe.
So it actually has nothing to do with a moral judgment of good and bad deeds.
Yeah.
It's literally just the mechanics of cause and effect.
In this broad cosmological sense, yes, it is the engine of creation.
The engine.
Think of it like a massive universal ecosystem. The sun evaporates water, the water forms clouds, the clouds rain on the earth grows plants, the plants feed the animals.
Right.
That continuous cycle of exchange, of energy-changing forms, that dynamic action is karma. It is the principle of movement and manifestation.
Wow.
It's what keeps the universe from being a frozen, static picture.
So we have the unchanging screen of Brahman, the individual observer of Atyatma, and the dynamic, creative movement of karma.
You got it.
Which brings us to the fourth question. What is Adhiputta, the physical plane? And Krishna's answer here is pretty blunt.
Very blunt.
He says the physical plane is the mutable, destructible entity. It is everything that changes.
Which is literally everything your senses can detect.
I agree.
Your physical body, the chair you are sitting on right now, the planet Earth, the solar system, all of it falls under Adhiputta.
Because it all decays.
Exactly. Because everything in the material world is subject to time, it is inherently unstable and destined for dissolution. Shankaracharya points out that human suffering generally stems from confusing Adhiputta, the destructible, with Brahman, the indestructible.
Oh, man. That is so true.
We try to find eternal security in things that are fundamentally designed to decay.
That is a staggering psychological insight. We cling to our youth, our bank accounts, our social status, trying to make them permanent, when their very nature is adhiputta. It's like trying to build a permanent house out of melting ice.
Precisely. And in contrast to that physical plane, Arjuna asks about the fifth element, adhidaiva, the divine plane.
Okay, the divine plane.
Krishna describes this as the cosmic person, often referred to in Vedic texts as the Purusha or Hiranyagarbha.
So is this like a god figure?
Not exactly. This isn't a bearded man in the sky. It represents the universal macrocosmic intelligence that animates and sustains the organs and faculties of all living creatures.
Can you break that down a bit more?
Sure.
Because how is the macrocosmic intelligence different from the Brahman we just talked about? If Brahman is the electricity, what is this cosmic person?
Oh, it's a great question. If Brahman is the pure, unconditioned electricity, Adhidaiva is like the global power grid.
No, the grid.
Yeah. It is the structured, intelligent network that directs the energy. It is the sum total of all subtle animating forces in the universe.
Okay.
It's the invisible architecture that governs how biology works, how gravity functions, how light travels. It is the universal mind of which our individual minds are just tiny, tiny fragments.
Okay, that makes total sense. It's the governing intelligence of the universe, just short of the absolute unmanifest reality.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the sixth question, and honestly, this is the one that feels the most intimate to me.
It is very intimate.
Arjuna asks about adhyajna, the entity of the sacrifice here in the body.
Right.
And Krishna answers, I, myself, am the entity that exists in the sacrifice in this body. He is saying that the supreme deity, the ultimate Godhead, resides right there within the physical biology of the individual.
This raises an incredibly important point, one that Shankaracharya spends a lot of time on in his commentary.
Why is that?
Well, why does Krishna need to specify this? Why isn't it enough to say that God is the overarching intelligence of the universe?
Yeah, why make it so local?
Why must he explicitly state that he is seated within the human body, specifically as the presiding entity of action and sacrifice?
Well, let me take a swing at this with an analogy, because trying to hold all six of these terms in my head at once is really challenging.
Go for it.
Let's imagine this entire framework like a massive interconnected computer system.
I like this. Let's see how well it maps to the text.
Okay, so Brahman, the immutable, is the pure electricity.
Right.
It's the raw, unconditioned power. The electricity doesn't know what software you are running. It doesn't care if you're writing a novel or playing a video game.
Just powers it all.
Exactly, but absolutely nothing happens without it. It is unchanging and essential.
Okay.
Then you have the physical plane, the adhiputta, that's the hardware, the laptop casing, the motherboard, the silicon.
The stuff that breaks.
Yeah, it's physical, it's prone to overheating, it degrades over time, and eventually you have to throw it in the recycling bin because it's mutable and destructible.
That aligns perfectly with the text's description of the perishable physical entity. Keep going.
Then the divine plane, the Adidaiva, is like the overarching global internet or the cloud infrastructure.
This network.
Right. It's the macro intelligence that governs how all the data flows between billions of devices. It sets the rules and protocols for the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
The Adhyatma, the individual self, is like a single user logged into one specific local machine.
Sure.
And karma, the engine of action, is the actual coding, the continuous processing of inputs and outputs that renders a virtual world on your screen.
You're touching on the exact mechanism of creation there. The constant processing of data is what creates the user experience, just as karma creates the lived reality.
Awesome.
But where does Krishna as Adhyajna fit into this computer?
This is the part I think is so cool. The Adhyajna, the supreme deity within the body, is the central processing unit.
The CPU.
The CPU. It is doing the actual intimate work of rendering reality in real time, right there locally, inside your specific machine.
That's a great image.
God isn't just up in the abstract cloud infrastructure. God is the processor inside your chest, witnessing every single keystroke, every single input. Does that hold up?
It works beautifully, but let's push it a little further, using Shankaracharya's logic.
Okay, push it.
What happens when a virus hits that computer?
It crashes.
Right. But in the context of this philosophy, that virus is ignorance. The delusion that you are the hardware.
Oh, wow.
When the user thinks they are the plastic keyboard that is eventually going to break, they suffer.
Because they think they're dying when the keyboard breaks.
Exactly. Shankaracharya explains that by identifying himself as the CPU, the Adhyajna inside the body, Krishna is grounding the infinite into your immediate tangible experience.
All right there.
You don't have to look to the stars or the cloud to find the divine. The divine is the silent witness to every breath you take, every heartbeat, every internal sacrifice or action you perform.
That is so grounding.
It bridges the terrifying gap between the vast macrocosm and our tiny, fragile microcosm.
It really makes the divine intensely intimate. It's not out there somewhere. It's right here.
Yes.
So now that we have this incredibly detailed architecture of reality established, we know the electricity, the hardware, the network, and the CPU. We are finally ready to address Arjuna's last and honestly, arguably most urgent question.
The whole reason this chapter exists.
Exactly. He asks, how are you to be known at the time of death?
This is the crux of the matter, the final exam.
Yeah.
Because eventually, the hardware fails.
The computer dies.
The body shuts down. What happens to the user, the consciousness, in that exact moment?
And if you're listening to this right now, maybe driving or walking the dog, this next part is something that fundamentally reorients how you view your everyday habits.
It really should.
It's not just abstract mysticism. It is deeply, deeply psychological.
Krishna lays out the mechanics of this final moment in verses 5 through 10, and he establishes an absolute, inviolable rule of the universe.
What's the rule?
He tells Arjuna, and at the time of death, anyone who departs by giving up the body while thinking of me alone, he attains my state. There's no doubt about this.
Okay.
And then he expands this into a universal psychological law. Whatever state of being a person remembers or thinks of when giving up the body, they attain that exact state in their next reality.
So your final thought dictates your next destination.
That's it.
It's like the ultimate algorithmic redirect. Whatever you input right before the system shuts down determines the URL where you boot up next.
Exactly. And because of this absolute rule, Krishna gives Arjuna a highly practical, though seemingly impossible, instruction.
What does he tell him to do?
Since that final thought is the steering wheel for the soul's destination, Krishna tells Arjuna to remember him at all times.
All times.
The text literally commands, therefore at all times, meditate on me and fight.
Meditate and fight. What a paradox.
It is a massive paradox.
He's telling him to hold the highest state of spiritual contemplation while simultaneously engaging in a brutal physical war. But wait, Krishna doesn't just say, think nice thoughts about me. He provides a very specific, rigorous methodology for what to do with your energy at the actual moment of biological death, doesn't he?
He does, and it requires an immense amount of training.
Tell us about it.
Krishna says that at the time of death, the yogi must fully fix the prana, the vital life force, firmly between the eyebrows.
Okay.
They must do this with an unwavering mind, utilizing the power of deep devotion and the disciplined strength of yogic concentration.
Okay, I need you to explain the mechanics of that. What does it actually mean to fix the prana between the eyebrows?
It's not just a physical gesture.
Because it sounds like you're just crossing your eyes. What is physiologically or psychologically happening here?
To understand this, we have to look at what happens when the body actually dies.
Okay.
As the biological systems shut down, the sensory faculties begin to withdraw. Sight fades, hearing fades, the sense of touch dissipates.
The power shutting down.
Right. Usually this happens chaotically, accompanied by intense fear, as the consciousness desperately tries to cling to the failing body.
That makes sense.
What the yogi does is intentionally mimic and control this withdrawal process. Prana isn't just breath. It's the subtle energy that powers the senses and the mind.
So instead of the energy bleeding out chaotically, you're gathering it together.
Exactly. By focusing the prana between the eyebrows, the area known in yogic anatomy as the Ajna chakra, the seat of intellect and will.
The third eye area.
Yes. The yogi is pulling their scattered consciousness away from the failing physical limbs, away from the panic of the nervous system, and concentrating it into a single, laser-like point of pure awareness.
Wow.
It is a conscious, deliberate exit rather than a frantic eviction. And from that point of intense concentration, they focus on the ultimate reality.
And Krishna describes the target of that focus with very specific attributes, right?
He does.
He says the yogi must meditate on the omniscient, the ancient, the ruler, the ordainer of everything, whose form is inconceivable, who is effulgent like the sun and beyond the darkness of delusion.
Beautiful imagery.
So you're gathering all your dying energy and aiming it at this luminous, transcendent truth?
That is the mechanical and spiritual process.
All right, I have to jump in here and push back hard on this whole concept.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because when I hear this rule, that whatever you think of at the very last second determines your ultimate fate, I immediately see a massive cosmic loophole.
A loophole?
Yeah. Human nature being what it is, couldn't someone just game the system?
How do you mean?
Could I live a completely reckless, selfish life, cheat my business partners, ignore my family, never meditate for 80 years, and then just cram for the final exam?
Just think of God at the last second.
Exactly. As long as I think of God at the last second, don't I get a free pass to liberation? It sounds like a cheat code.
It's a completely natural objection, and honestly, it's one that has been raised by skeptics for centuries.
It seems so obvious.
It does. But this is exactly where Adi Shankaracharya's commentary is so vital, because he completely dismantles this loophole theory.
How?
He points out that this objection relies on a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human brain and mind actually work under extreme stress.
How so? Because theoretically, I can choose what to think about right now. Why not then?
Because the state of your mind at the moment of death is not a blank slate. You don't have access to a serene drop-down menu of thoughts to choose from.
Oh, right.
Think about the physiological reality of dying. It is almost always accompanied by intense physical pain, confusion, disorientation, and the systematic collapse of your cognitive functions.
The system is crashing.
Your nervous system is likely firing off massive alarm bells. Shankaracharya argues that you simply cannot conjure a pure, highly focused, elevated thought of the divine while your body's in a state of primal panic, unless that thought has become your deepest neurological default.
Wow. So under extreme stress, you don't rise to the occasion. You default to your training.
Exactly. The mind at death is the accumulated product of its lifelong habits.
That is so true.
It's a matter of cognitive momentum. If you have spent your entire life obsessed with money and your identity is entirely wrapped up in your bank account, your last thought, as your brain shuts down, will likely be panic about your assets.
Yeah. Where is my money going?
Right. If you've spent your life consumed by grudges and resentment, your final thought will be colored by anger. The final thought isn't a spontaneous, clever choice. It is the inevitable fruit of the tree you've been watering your whole life.
That makes terrifying sense. It completely shuts down the idea of cramming for the exam.
It really does.
It's like imagine trying to play a wildly complex Beethoven sonata perfectly on stage in front of an audience,
Okay.
but you've never practiced the piano a day in your life and the concert hall is literally on fire and the smoke is filling your lungs.
You're not going to play Beethoven.
No, you're not going to suddenly channel Beethoven. You're going to bang your fists on the keys in a sheer animal panic. The only way you play that sonata while the building burns is if the music is so deeply embedded in your muscle memory that your hands play it automatically, deeper than the panic.
That is a brilliant analogy. And that is precisely why Krishna commands Arjuna, therefore at all times, meditate on me.
At all times.
The lifelong practice of devotion, of returning your mind to the immutable reality day in and day out, that is what builds the spiritual muscle memory.
Right.
So that when the final crisis arrives, the mind naturally, effortlessly turns toward the light, because that is where it is most accustomed to resting.
Okay, but this brings up a huge practical problem for me, and I'm sure for anyone listening.
What's that?
If lifelong, continuous focus is required to build that spiritual muscle memory, how on earth do we actually do that?
It's hard.
Because my mind is chaotic. I get distracted by a notification on my phone, let alone a civil war or my impending death. We need an anchor.
We do.
Does the Gita provide a specific tool to train this wandering mind?
It does. And this leads us to one of the most practical and profound teachings in the chapter.
Let's hear it.
The use of the single syllable OM and understanding the staggering scale of cosmic time. This is where we zoom out from the individual psychology to the absolute macro mechanics of the universe.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's start with the tool. What does Krishna say about OM in verses 11 through 22?
Krishna explains that for the yogi who has managed to withdraw the senses, who has confined the mind within the heart and fixed the vital force in the head, which, as we discussed, is the state of deep, laser-like concentration.
Right, the focus.
The ultimate tool is the utterance of the single syllable OM. Krishna explicitly states that OM is Brahman.
Wait, really?
Yes, uttering this syllable while leaving the body, while thinking of the divine, leads to the supreme goal.
Wait, he says OM is Brahman, not just a symbol for it, but the actual thing?
Yes.
How can a sound made by human vocal cords be the supreme reality?
Shankaracharya dives deep into this. He explains that because the infinite, unconditioned Brahman is entirely beyond the grasp of the finite human intellect, we need a bridge.
Okay, a bridge.
We need a representation that our minds can actually hold on to. OM is both a name and a sound symbol for that reality.
How does that work physically?
Think about the structure of the sound itself. It is composed of 3 phonetic parts in Sanskrit: A, U, and M, followed by silence. A starts in the back of the throat, U rolls through the mouth, and M closes the lips. It physically encompasses the entire apparatus of human vocalization.
Wow, I never thought of that.
It represents the beginning, middle, and end of creation, and the silence that follows represents the unmanifest reality beyond creation.
That is fascinating. And, modern science actually shows that chanting sounds like OM stimulates the vagus nerve.
Really?
Yeah, the vagus nerve runs from the brainstem down to the abdomen, and vibrating it physically triggers the parasympathetic nervous system.
That's incredible.
It literally calms the panic response in the body. So ancient yogis found a sound that not only philosophically represents the universe, but biologically hacks the human nervous system to induce calm and focus.
It's a perfect convergence of theology and physiology. By meditating on OM, you are giving your chaotic mind a single profound anchor.
An anchor.
And reaching this supreme goal, this state of liberation that OM points to, means breaking the cycle of rebirth.
Which is the goal.
Krishna describes the transmigratory world, our physical reality of constant birth and death, very bluntly. He calls it an abode of sorrows and emphasizes that it is inherently impermanent.
He doesn't sugarcoat it at all.
Not even a little.
But to really drive home how impermanent this world is, the text zooms out to a scale of time that just breaks my brain.
Is massive.
Krishna contrasts our brief, fragile human lifespans with the days and nights of Brahma, the cosmic creator deity. Can you walk us through that cosmic timeline? Because it's a huge perspective shift.
It truly dwarfs human comprehension, and honestly, it's meant to. According to the Vedic cosmology laid out here, human time is measured in yugas, or massive ages.
Okay.
But one single day in the life of Brahma equals 1,000 such yugas. That translates roughly to 4.32 billion human years.
4 billion years for one day.
And his night is exactly as long.
Over 4 billion years for one single day. So what exactly happens during this unimaginable stretch of time?
Krishna explains that at the dawn of Brahma's day, all manifested entities, every galaxy, every star, every planet, every insect, every human.
Everything.
They emerge from what is called the unmanifest state. They burst into existence, the universe expands, and the drama of life plays out for billions of years.
Okay.
But when Brahma's night falls, all of these entities absolutely dissolve. The universe contracts.
They just vanish.
Everything merges back into that same unmanifest state. It goes dormant. And this cycle repeats endlessly, day after day, universe after universe, endless creation and endless dissolution.
That is awe-inspiring and slightly terrifying.
It really puts things in perspective.
When you really sit and contemplate that timescale, think about the things that stressed you out yesterday. A passive-aggressive comment at work, a traffic jam, a stain on your shirt. Against the backdrop of a universe that breathes out galaxies for 4 billion years and then breathes them back in, Our daily anxieties just seem completely absurd.
It's the ultimate overview effect for time.
It really is.
Right.
But hold on, I see a philosophical trap here.
What's the trap?
If absolutely everything dissolves back into this unmanifest state every cosmic night, doesn't that mean we are all ultimately trapped?
Trapped how?
I mean, even if I dissolve into sleep for 4 billion years, I'm just going to be spit back out into a new body when the next cosmic day starts.
Yeah.
Where's the actual liberation?
You've zeroed in on the exact philosophical problem that Krishna anticipates and solves in the very next verses.
Okay, good.
And this is where Shankaracharya's analytical clarity is absolutely essential, because it gets a little tricky. Krishna introduces the concept of a second unmanifest.
Wait, 2 unmanifests. Explain.
Yes, Krishna says, but distinct from that unmanifested is the other eternal unmanifest reality who does not get destroyed when all beings get destroyed. Shankaracharya meticulously unpacks this. He explains that the first unmanifest is called Maya, or Prakriti. It is the temporary seed state of material nature.
The seed state.
It is the cosmic waiting room. When the physical universe dissolves into Maya during Brahma's night, it's just sleeping. The seeds of karma are still there, waiting to sprout again. It is still bound by ignorance.
Ah, okay. So dissolving into Maya isn't liberation. It's just hitting the pause button on the VCR.
Exactly.
The movie is still in the machine waiting to be played again.
Exactly. But the second unmanifest is the true, eternal Brahman. It is a reality that exists entirely beyond the cycle of cosmic day and night.
Beyond the VCR entirely.
It is never born, and it is never destroyed. It is the supreme person, the ultimate consciousness. And Krishna says that this supreme state, this second unmanifest, is reached only through one pointed devotion.
That distinction changes everything.
It does.
If the cosmos is this terrifyingly huge cyclical machine of endless creation and destruction, we aren't trying to just go to sleep within the machine. We are trying to exit the machine entirely.
Yeah.
And OM is the internal escape hatch.
That is a very accurate way to visualize it. Meditating on OM aligns your consciousness, not with the temporary cycle of Maya, but with the eternal reality of Brahman.
Okay, so we've established the target, the eternal Brahman. We've established the tool, the syllable OM. And we've established the method, lifelong devotion to build muscle memory for the moment of death.
Yes.
But let's get into the actual logistics of the departure. Once the soul actually leaves the body, what routes are available to it? Does it just teleport instantly?
Not exactly.
Because verses 23 through 28 outline a very specific map for this. And frankly, on first read, it sounds a bit bizarre.
It is highly symbolic, and if read literally, it leads to a lot of confusion.
To everyone listening, I really want you to pay close attention to this explanation of the 2 paths of the soul. Because at first, it's going to sound like ancient superstition about weather and calendars. But it is actually a profound metaphor for human psychology and spiritual evolution. So Krishna describes a bright path and a dark path. Let's start with the bright path. What are its characteristics?
The bright path is known in the tradition as the Dvayana, or the path of the gods, the path of non-return.
Path of non-return. Got it.
Krishna associates it with very specific markers of light. He says this path is characterized by fire, by light, by daytime, by the bright fortnight of the lunar cycle when the moon is waxing,
Okay.
by the 6 months of the northern solstice when the days are getting longer. The text says that those who know Brahman and depart by this path attain Brahman and do not return to the cycle of rebirth.
Okay, lots of light imagery. And the dark path.
The dark path is the Pitriyana, the path of the ancestors, or the path of return.
The opposite.
Its markers are the exact opposites. It's characterized by smoke, by night, by the dark fortnight of the waning moon, and by the 6 months of the southern solstice when the days grow shorter.
So darkness and shrinking light.
Right. Krishna explains that the yogi who takes this path reaches the lunar light, enjoys the fruits of their actions for a time in heavenly realms, but eventually, when their merit is exhausted, they fall back down and return to earthly rebirth.
Okay, I have to stop you and ask for some serious demystification here.
I figured you would.
Because when I read this literally, it sounds like an arbitrary cosmic lottery based on the calendar.
It does sound like that.
If I am a deeply enlightened, kind, meditative person, but I happen to get hit by a bus at 2 a.m. on a dark winter night in December during a waning moon, am I just automatically doomed to the dark path?
Doomed by the clock.
Yeah, is my spiritual liberation dependent on literal meteorology? Because for a text that is otherwise so philosophically airtight, that seems completely absurd.
You are absolutely right to push back on that, and it's a question that confused readers for millennia. And it's exactly why we rely on an expert guide like Shankaracharya.
What does he say?
He steps in here and firmly, explicitly clarifies this. He states that these terms, fire, light, smoke, night, solstice, they do not represent physical weather, times of day, or calendar dates.
Oh, thank goodness. So what are they?
Shankaracharya explains that on one level, these terms refer to deities presiding over time, subtle, guiding intelligences that assist the soul on its journey.
Okay, symbolic guides.
But on a deeper philosophical and psychological level, they are profound metaphors for states of consciousness.
States of consciousness.
Yes. The bright path, characterized by fire, light, and the expanding day, symbolizes the journey of enlightenment, illumination, and knowledge.
That makes so much more sense.
It is the trajectory of a mind that has become luminous through realizing its identity with Brahman. It has burned away its attachments.
And the dark path. The smoke and the night.
The dark path represents the journey of a consciousness still bound by ignorance and desire. It is the path of people who may have lived very good lives.
Like charity and stuff?
Yeah, they performed their duties, gave to charity, did their rituals, but they were still deeply attached to the results of their action.
I wanted a reward.
Exactly. They still had ego. Their consciousness is smoky. Think about what smoke does. It obscures vision.
It blinds you.
It burns the eyes. It makes everything hazy. Their minds are clouded by attachments to worldly or heavenly rewards.
Wow.
Because they still have desires, the gravity of those desires inevitably pulls them back into a physical body to fulfill them.
That makes total sense, and it perfectly aligns with modern psychology. Think about the smoke in our own minds.
Oh, yeah.
When you are obsessing over whether you're going to get a promotion, or ruminating over an argument, or endlessly scrolling social media, comparing yourself to others, your mind is full of smoke.
Completely hazy.
You have no clarity. You are entirely attached to outcomes. But when you let go of ego, when you practice presence and compassion without needing a reward, your mind is clear. It is full of light.
That's the bright path.
So what Krishna is really saying is that your destination is determined by the amount of light in your consciousness, not the clock on the wall when your heart stops.
Exactly. The physical time of death has absolutely no bearing on the spiritual destination for a true knower of Brahman.
That is such a relief.
If you have spent your life cultivating clarity and detachment, your consciousness is naturally drawn along the bright path of light, even if you die at midnight in the dead of winter.
The time is internal.
The time Krishna is referring to is the state of your spiritual maturity. And Krishna ends this section by saying that knowing these two paths, a yogi is never deluded.
Right.
They understand the mechanics of the universe, so they stop aiming for temporary heavenly vacations and aim directly for the supreme eternal state.
This has been an incredibly deep, sometimes dense journey through some massive cosmology.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We've talked about the architecture of reality, the psychology of the dying brain, the billions of years of Brahma's day, and the metaphorical paths of light and smoke.
A huge framework.
But how do we synthesize all of this? How do we take these ancient cosmological concepts and actually apply them to the life of the listener right now, today? Because as you said earlier, knowledge without application is just trivia.
That is the most important question we can ask. If we synthesize the key themes we've uncovered, we see a very clear operational manual for life.
Okay, let's summarize it.
First, we establish Brahman as the ultimate imperishable reality underlying everything, the electricity that never fails.
Right.
Second, we establish the sheer, uncompromising importance of where our mind is focused at the time of transition, which we learned is entirely dictated by the habits we build during our lifetime.
The muscle memory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Third, we explored the two trajectories of the soul, the bright path of clarity and the dark path of smoky attachment. So, how does this resonate today?
Well, if you are a listener who constantly feels overwhelmed, and let's be honest, who doesn't right now?
We all do.
If you feel battered by the constant influx of daily information, the 24-hour news cycle, the endless demands of your career and family, this philosophy offers a powerful, stabilizing antidote.
It truly does.
The practice of focusing on one immutable reality, using a tool like OM or whatever meditative anchor resonates with you, isn't just about preparing for a peaceful death. It provides an ultimate mental anchor right now.
Right now.
It trains your brain to cut through the temporary anxiety-inducing noise of the physical plane, the Atthakutta, and rest in the silent security of the inner self.
Absolutely. And this brings us to Shankaracharya's grand synthesis of the entire chapter, which is brilliant.
What's his final takeaway?
He emphasizes that true freedom from the cycle of rebirth, whether you view that literally as reincarnation over lifetimes or metaphorically as the daily, exhausting cycle of waking up stressed, reacting to problems, and going to bed anxious.
Yeah, that daily grind.
True freedom isn't achieved by avoiding action. You don't have to run away to a cave.
You don't have to quit your job.
Right. True freedom comes from the constant remembrance of the self amidst the chaos of action. Remember Krishna's command, meditate on me and fight.
Right. It's about how you fight the battle of your daily life, not about leaving the battlefield entirely.
Precisely. And Shankaracharya shows how two major spiritual paths, devotion, bhakti, and knowledge, jnana, are completely seamlessly integrated in this chapter.
People usually separate those.
Often, people treat them as opposites. They think devotion is just emotional chanting, and knowledge is cold, intellectual study.
Right.
But here, there are two wings of the same bird. Devotion, the constant loving remembrance of the divine, purifies the mind. It clears away the smoke of ego and desire.
It makes you light.
And knowledge, the intellectual realization of your true identity with the immutable Brahman, severs the root of ignorance. They feed into each other. It is a unified, synergistic process.
Devotion gives you the stamina and the focus, and knowledge gives you the ultimate truth of what you are focusing on.
Exactly.
I love that. And it makes me realize something profound about the paths we just discussed.
What's that?
If the bright path is characterized by light and clarity, and the dark path is characterized by the smoke of attachment, then the bright path isn't a highway you only merge onto after your heart stops beating.
So where does it start?
It starts right now, today.
Yes.
Every single moment in your day where you actively choose awareness over ignorance, where you take a breath before snapping at your kids, where you choose compassion over selfishness, where you choose to remember the eternal underlying reality rather than getting totally lost in the temporary drama of the Adhibhuta, in that exact moment, you are stepping onto the bright path.
That is so true.
You are walking it right now. You are actively building the spiritual muscle memory that will carry you through your final transition.
That is a phenomenal way to articulate it. Every moment of clarity is a step on the Dhyana. It makes the entire vast cosmology profoundly actionable. You are participating in the cosmic architecture with every choice you make.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's reiterate the core message for you, the listener, very clearly.
Let's hear it.
The soul attains ultimate freedom by remembering the eternal, imperishable Brahman at life's final moment. But that moment is not a loophole.
No cheat codes.
It is a transition that can only be successfully navigated if it has been prepared for by a lifetime of consistent devotion, awareness, and practice.
The final exam is indeed open book, but you have to write the book yourself, word by word, every single day of your life.
That is the perfect summary. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey today.
It was a pleasure.
Please remember to subscribe to the deep dive, like this video, and drop into the comments section below. We really want to know, what does walking the bright path mean to you in your daily life? How do you clear the smoke? How do you anchor yourself in the immutable when your specific world gets chaotic and loud?
It is always illuminating to read how listeners apply these ancient, timeless frameworks to the unique challenges of modern life.
And make sure you join us next time as we continue our journey through the Gita. We will be exploring Chapter 9, Raja Vidya Raja Guhya Yoga, where we will unlock the sovereign knowledge and dive into the ultimate mystery.
That one's going to be amazing.
You absolutely won't want to miss it. It takes everything we built today and expands it exponentially.
It truly elevates the discourse to an even higher, more expansive level of understanding.
But before we go, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Leave them with something big.
We've spent this time talking about the biological time of death, the ultimate end of a human lifespan. But what if we took this profound teaching on transition and applied it to a much, much smaller scale?
How small?
What if you applied it to the end of every single day as you close your eyes to fall asleep? Or even the end of every single breath you exhale? If you treated the end of this very minute as a miniature departure, a tiny death of the present moment, what state of mind would you deliberately choose to carry into the next?